Are you in the Mr. Rogers movie coming out?
Don't you like my new vest? It's my
I do actually like it.
It's my Corona wear.
That looks very comfy. I'll buy you a pipe.
Want to see comfy? Here, one sec here. How do I turn this around here? Hold on. Well, I guess I'll just turn that.
Oh my God.
The best time to own a dog is at night when they're asleep.
That's comfy.
He's asleep even before the Daf.
Okay. So we're on Samech Ches, Amud Aleph 68. So the same Baraisa Meisvei, Boil Nida Ketabi Meis, that somebody who lives with the Nida, his Tumah will be similar to somebody who was contaminated by a corpse. Lamai. Now, how are they similar? What, that they have the same Gedorim regarding their Tumah? Hi Tumah Shivaksiv, Vai Tumah Shivaksiv. Both have a pasuk that says that they're tummy for 7 days. So I don't need a Baraisa to tell me Boil Nida Ketami Meis to teach me their Tumah. And a Lav Lamachanoisa to teach me that we said a Tumas Meis can be a Machna Leviyah. Doesn't have to be kicked out of Machna Leviyah. Well, are you telling me that Boil Nida is the same? And and if the safe of this brisa is dealing with which machna they're kicked out of, the Balkari comparison to the Mitzorah we said is also related to the machanoisa. So the Gemara says, who cares? Just because the seifa is one thing doesn't mean the ratio has to be the same thing. Each one stands on itself. We'll ask another kash. Mitzorah chomer mizav. A mitzorah is more stringent than a zav. The zav chomer mitame meis. A zav is more chomer than tame meis. Yotza balkari shetame meis chomer mimenu. The balkari is sort of the least in the hierarchy. The tame meis is more machmer than him. Now, my yotza, what do we mean that balkari is yotze? Lav yotze michlal zav u'balachal tame meis. That means even though you would think that an emission that a balkari has is similar to a zivus emission, yet it's removed from the category of zivus and is more comparable to tame meis. And
why is that more comparable to tame meis? We said yesterday that all the bodily emissions are a more chomer form of tumah than externally contacting.
Right. So it's just the Baraisa said Mitzorah, then Zav, then tame meis, then Balkari. So what did it mean Yotza? It seems that the Balkari is not being treated as chomer as a Zav. Rather, he's being treated like a tame meis. And but that doesn't make sense. Tame meis chomer mimenu umuter machna leviyah. But a tame meis is more stringent, right? As a balkari is only tummy for 1 day. A tame meis is tummy for 7 days. Yet a tame meis is allowed to be in machna leviyah, like we proved, Moshe Rabbeinu had Atzmos Yosef with them. So the Gemara says, lo, we're not talking about Yotza Michlal Zav. It's Yotza Mimachna Tame Meis v'nichnas l'machna Zav. That means a balkari is actually treated like a Zav, not like a Tame Meis. That is, he has to be kicked out of Machna Leviyah, like a Zav is kicked out of Machna Leviyah. Remember, there are 3 Machnas. There's Machna Shechina, which is the Azara. Then there's Machna Leviyah, which is the Harabayis. Then there's Machna Yisrael, which is considered Yerushalayim. And then there's outside of Yerushalayim. So everyone is kicked out of the Azara. At Tumas Meis, it seemed, yesterday we learned, can hang out in Machna Leviyah. The Zav and all the other ones, the Zav, the Zava, the Nida, the Yoledes, and now a Balkari, has to be kicked out of Machna Levia into Yerushalayim, and a Metzora goes outside of Yerushalayim. That's the order of the shlichus from the Machnos.
Is there a difference between an Atzmos, Yosef, and a mace that has flesh on it? Is there a difference between the two?
No,
As the same?
because a complete skull or complete spinal column has the same din as the kazayis min ha-mace. So if you have the right set of bones.
Yeah.
Now, by the way, we have a Masorah that tzaddikim don't decompose.
Right.
So it's l'chora that the tzaddikim were
Flesh
still
on
flesh.
Mm-hmm.
It's only you're talking about Yosef died when he was 110. They came into Mitzrayim when he was 39, so let's call it 40. When they came in, it's 210 years till they left Mitzrayim. So it's 210 minus 70. So you're talking about 140 years.
And they embalmed him too.
So even 140, that's 140 years. When Moshe Rabbeinu, and Moshe Rabbeinu is taking him when they leave Mitzrayim, which is at 210 years, Redu Shama. So that's not unusual to say that Yosef was still somewhat intact at that point. So back to the Gemara. So the Gemara says, "Lo Yotzav Machna Tomes Meis." It follows the Zav. Now, Alpha got the Tomes Meis Chomer. Man, the Mutter Machna Levia, and even though how could it be that the Balkari gets kicked out of Machna Levia even though Tomes Meis is more Chomer? Because Lamai the Domile Midamin. It's more appropriate to compare a Zav, like Kenny said. It's a type of tumah that emanates from your body, which we discussed, has a chum. Tani Tani Kamed Rav Yitzchak Bar Avdimi. It says, V'yotza el michutza machaneh, zu machna shchina. So that's the first machna that anyone who's tummy has to be kicked out. Then it says, Lo yavo tocha machaneh. And then for the Zav, the Zava, the Metzora, the more stringent ones, there's a lav of Lo Yavo into another machna, zu machna Levia. And Mikan Balkari Shiyotza, Shiyetze Chutz Shtei Machnos. And the Balkari is in that category as well. He's kicked out of machna Shechina and machna Levia, 2 machnas. Omer lei, Akati lo alte afikte, before you brought him in, you kicked him out. Lishnachlit Akati lo afikte alte. That means before you kicked him out, you brought him in. Ema michutz machane as machne levia. Lo yavo el toch machne zu machne shchina. Maski for Ravina ema item machne shchina. Maybe both are referring to being kicked out of machne shchina, and not out of 2 machnas, and rather lavra lav basei velota say. Maybe the din of being kicked out of the machne shchina, there's a lav and an asay. But im came him akrav yotzo mechutz machne velo yavo el toch machne. Then you don't need machne lamali. Shema minel litelo machne acheres that he has to be kicked out of. And that's the halacha, like I quoted, min Rambam, that the Metzora leaves Yerushalayim, the rest of them have to leave Machna Levi as well. They can't be in the Har HaBayis. Only a Tomei Meis can be in the Har HaBayis. Then we talked about what things can be Doicha Shabbos. So we said Michui Krovov could be Doicha Shabbos. Now, what is that? My Michu Krovov, Ravuna Omer Shmenakvin ben Basakim. They would take a knife, they would make a hole in the intestines so the waste would sort of ooze out. Or they would take the back of a knife and sort of press it on the intestines so the thing inside of the intestines would come out. So it would not be masriach the korbanos. My time the ksiv the charvois mechim gorim yochelu. It's a pasuk in Yeshaya. That's the concept of michui, that you press it with a knife. So my mashma, where did we get that? Kidem Rav Yosef. V'nichseim the Rishiyat Tzadika Yachsanu. That means the assets of the Rishoim, Tzadikim will inherit. So that's the concept where michui refers to something that's bizoyon, like the bizoyon of the Rishoim. Then it says v'ra'u kvasim kedavra, and the kvasim is like an analogy to Klal Yisrael. This is like what the Navi promised. What did the Navi promise? That they will, the tzaddikim will end up eating like we said, the assets of the Rishoim. Charvois is like a knife, like a cherem. And Ashad Chsiv Charvois, it's referring to something else. The tzaddikim will resurrect the dead. Yiru Vashon v'Gilad. Vashon refers to Elisha Navi, and Gilad refers to Eliyahu Navi, Eliyahu Giladi. Yiru Vashon v'Gilad Kimeyon. Vashon ze Elisha b'amna Vashon. He came from the area of the Bashan, like near the Golan Heights. Shenamar v'Yani v'Shafat b'Bashan. In Divrei Yomim, where it gives us the yichus of Elisha, it refers that he came from Bashan. Uksiv po Elisha ben Shafat, asher yatzak mai Eliyahu, which referring to Elisha. Gilad ze Eliyahu, shenemar vayomer Eliyahu atishbi, mitoshavei Gilad, Amar Shmuel bar Nachman Rav Yochanan, atidin tzadikim sheyichyu meisim. The tzadikim will cause resurrection of the dead. Shenemar, od yeshvu zekenim uzekenim perchovos Yerushalayim. Once again, we'll sit elders in the streets of Yerushalayim. The ish mishanto b'yadam Rav Yomim. Each will carry a cane because he'll be very old. And by Elisha, when Elisha was promised the Isha Hashunamit, a child, and then the child died, and he was called to resurrect a child, it mentions there also that he was going to put his cane, the mishenet, on the face of the child in his resurrection process. Now, we started talking about dead people. The Gemara is going to give us some drushes. Ula Rami. Ksiv. Bila hamavis lanetzach. Hashem at one point is going to swallow death eternally. Umoch Hashem Elokim dima me'al kol panim. He will erase tears from everybody's faces. So it says he's going to get rid of death. Uksiv ki anar ben mea shana yamus. When it's talking about Akris Hayomim, it says people will live to 100 and then die. Well, that means death hasn't gone away. Lo kasha kan b'Yisrael kan b'Nochrim. Jews will not die. Gentiles will die. Afraid the Gemara of Nochrim, my boy Hassam. What is Gentiles doing in the next world? The Chsiv, the Ondu Zorim. Even a Zar, non-Jew, will stand up. The road, and they will serve like as the farmers and as the shepherds.
Somebody's here, knocking on the door. Somebody's here.
So we need the Gentiles to help us. Rav Chisda Rami, Ksiv v'chafra halavana uvusha achama. This is also
I heard
referring
knocking on
to
the door.
Achris Hayomim, that we will not need, it's like we'll bury the moon and the sun. We don't need the light of the moon or the sun. However, another pasuk says, "V'haya or halvana or achama." The moon will have like the light of the sun. The or achama yeshivatayim kor shivasayom. The sunlight will be 70 times greater. Lokash. Now, by the way, the scientists also see in the future our sun becoming like a supernova. I mean, that's billions of years from now, but the stars, as they die, they do grow. It's just interesting. Anyways, lo kasha kan lo olam haba, kan li mosa mashiach. It means the olam haba, we don't need light at all from the sun and the moon, but the sun and the moon growing in intensity will be li mosa mashiach. But that seems to imply that when Mashiach comes, nature will change. However, Shmuel, the Amar Ein Ben Olam Hazeh Li Mosa Mashiach Al Shibud Malchus Bilvad Michael Meimar, Shmuel said that the times of Mashiach is not, the nature is not going to be different. The lion will not lie down with the lamb. The laws of science and physics will continue. By the way, the Rambam paskins like Shmuel. So, according to neither pshat, does that fit with Shmuel? So the Gemara says, "I divide l'olam haba." Ein chanami. Both cases, either we don't have the sun at all, or the sun is brighter, are referring to olam haba. The loy kasha. Kan b'machna shchina. In machna shchina, there's no need for light. Kan b'machna tzadikim, that's where the sun and the moon will be bigger. Rava Rami. Rava showed another contradiction. Ksiv, ani amis v'achya. I cause death, but I will revive. Uksiv mochatzti v'ani erpa. I cause illness, but I heal. So I don't understand. Hashte achla machai. Certainly, if Hashem can make a dead person live, marapil akashik, then certainly he can heal a sick person. Rather, Elohimar Kadosh Baruch Hu, mashani meimi sani machaye. What I cause to die, I will cause to live again. And kimosha machati v'ne'erpa, similar in the same way that I healed what when there was an illness, that's how I'm going to make live that which was dies. Farabonon, ani amis v'chayeh, yachol misa be'echad, v'chayim be'echad. Maybe that means one person's going to die and a new person's going to be born. It's not referring to the same person, which is like our world is now. No. When I heal somebody, the healing happens in the same person with the sickness. So death and then life afterwards will be in the same person. The word ani amisvach here, which appears in Hazinu, therefore it's a pasuk in the Torah, is a proof for Tchias HaMeisa in the Torah. Dover acher, batchila mashani meimi sani machayim. That means it's going to be a stepwise process by Tchias HaMeisa. First, he will cause those who had died to live. Then, if they had some kind of illness, he will heal it. Then it says v'hekter chalava. It says you can offer the chaylev. That's also doicha Shabbos, and doicha when we offer the korban Pesach, the chaylev can also be doicha. You can put it on the mizbeach. Tanya Amrav Shimon. Look how beloved a mitzvah is at the time that you're supposed to do the mitzvah. The din is when you shecht an animal as a korban, the chaylev and the limbs can be burnt all night. So technically, they could have said, we're talking about when Erev Pesach is on a Shabbos, they could have said, why don't you delay the burning of the chaylev and the evarim until nightfall, when it's Yontif and not Shabbos anymore. Because chaviva mitzvah b'shaita. We don't require you to wait and do it Motzei Shabbos. However, harkavto, also we said carrying the sheep to the Beis Hamikdash and removing a wart from the animal, that's not doichesh. You should have done that on Friday. I'll ask you a kasha. It says on Shabbos you can remove a wart in the Mikdash. Avalobim Dina, which implies it's just the Drabana. And they were not goizer by the Beis Hamikdash. Now, that's if you do it by hand. But the imbakli kan v'kanoser, you can't use an instrument like scissors or a knife. But you can do it by hand. So how come our Mishnah says you can? So Rav Elazar Rav Yossi Bar Chamin Tzvach Loikos Kadomer Aidi v'Idi b'Yad. We're talking about both cases. You use your hand, but it's usher if it's lacha, if it's moist. Halabiyavesha, but it's mutter if it's dry and it was ready to come off anyways. The Chadam Aidi v'Idi b'Lacha. Both are talking about when they're moist. The loikasha habiyad, which is permitted, habikli, which is prohibited. Now, Lamando Amar habiyad habikli, the one who said that the machlokas is between doing it by hand or doing it by kli. My time, why didn't he learn lo amar divided biyad? That they're both talking about yad. The lokasha habalach habiyavesha, one is moist, one is dry. Why didn't he use that pshat? Amar lach yavesha mafarch pricha. Because dry is already, it's as if it's gone and away. So you don't really need to move it away. Now, the one who said both cases are talking about you used your hand. So how come one says you can do it, one says you can't? One is moist, one is dry. Why my time why didn't he learn like that the machlokas is between doing it by hand or doing it by kli? Kli, haktani asam, it already said in bakli kan v'kan aser. The person who says that the machlokes is kli, what does he do with that? Idif hadiktani kli. Rabbi Yeshua wanted to show us how far Rabbi Elazar goes that he permits even with a kli to be machshir, because Rabbi Elazar Demila allows you that even dvarim that are hechsher to the mitzvah are allowed to be done for Shabbos. On Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Yeshua l'tamei. The Omar Simchas Yontov Nami Mitzvah. We said you can't prove from Yontiv because it's Yontiv is a rishus to preparing a korban, which is a dvar mitzvah. So Rabbi Yeshua said, no, Simchas Yontiv is Nami Mitzvah. Eating and enjoying yourself on Yontif is not a rishus; it's a mitzvah too. The Tanya, Rabbi Ezra Oimer, Ein lo adam b'Yontif. It's all or none. You should spend the time learning. Rabbi Yeshua Oimer Chalkei. No, you divide it. Chatzi lachem v'chatzi lashem. Right? Chatzi lachila u'shtia v'chatzi l'beis hamedrash. They both learned from the same puzzle. Atzeres Lashem Elokecha. Atzeres means comes to a stop. The Kosuv Echad Atzeres Tialachem should be an Atzeres for you. Rabbi Ezra Somer, that's why he said, O Kulu Lashem, O Kulu Lachem. Rabbi Yeshua Sovar. we paskin in Shulchan Aruch like Rabbi Yeshua. Chetzi lachem, half in Torah and half lachilu shtia. We have a server oikul Hashem oikul lachem. Rabbi Yeshua server chalkeyu. Chetzi lachem chetzi lachem. Rabbi Lozer akol moedim batzeres, but Shavuos, everybody agrees to be in a nami lachem. That you also can be made happy with Michael and Mishta, because that was the day that Klal Yisrael received the Torah, right? My time Yom Shnei Rabba Torah. So there's a special reason to celebrate. That Shabbos also gets a special din of people eating and enjoying. My time of the Karosa la Shabbos Oinig. Rav Yosef, Hakol Moedim B'Purim, de Be'ina Nami Lachem, that you're allowed to have a big feast. My time, Yemei Mishta V'Simcha. It's a mitzvah. Ksibbe, Mar Breid Ravina Kula Shat Ava Yosef B'Tamisa. Ravina would be in the Mar Breid Ravina would fast all the time. Lebar Ma'atzart except for Shavuos, Upuria and Purim, Umala Yuma de Kippurim, and Erev Yom Kippur. Why? Atzeres was because Yom Shnei Torah. Torah was given. Purim written in the Megillah Yemei Mishta V'Simcha. See, Mala Yom Kippur. The Torah Chiyah Barav Medifti. It says V'inisem esnav shosechem. You shall afflict your neshama. B'sisha lachodesh on the 9th day of Tishrei. Freiti Gemor v'chi b'sisha mesani. We don't fast on the 9th. We fast on the 10th. Malo basiri mesani. And the loy melacha. Whoever eats and drinks on the 9th, it's as if he fasted on the 9th and the 10th. Rav Yosef b'Yom Adar Tzarta on Shavuos, he would say, "Avdili egla tilsa, make me a fatted calf," like meaning a very special calf. Because Omar, he said, if it wasn't for Shavuos, where the Torah was given, so I could study Torah, become a Rosh Yeshiva, Kama Yosef B'Shuka, there'd be a lot of Yosefs in the street. But I'm Rav Yosef because of Shavuos. So he had a special reason to celebrate. Rav Sheshes called Tlos and Yomim, Mahadalei Talmud. Rav Sheshes would review, would chazer all of his learning every 30 days. V'toli v'koi be'ivr dedasha. He would sort of lean himself on his door. He would say, "You should be happy." He was talking to his nefesh to say, "Be happy," because lach kari lach tonight. The learning I did it for you. Versus Aini. It's not for the individual person. If it wasn't for Torah, the heaven and earth wouldn't stand. Yeah. But when a person starts learning Torah, he first does it for himself. He wants to become a more refined person by studying Torah. And then he later on will have the whole world in mind. So Rabbi Yeshua said that eating and drinking on Yom Tov is not just a reshus, it's a mitzvah. Well, Rabbi Yezer though held it was a reshus. Yeslei pircha. But we would have a kasha on Rabbi Yezer. Umay Yom Tov, shehiter bo melacha shel reshus. Yom Tov permits you to cook. For example, you want to eat. So you're allowed to cook. Lo hiter shvus she'ima, but it didn't permit other Rabbanon Isurim that are not doichi yontif. Shabbos lo hiter bo malacha shel mitzvah, but Shabbos you're not allowed to do malacha shel rishus. It's only malacha of mitzvah, like shchita of a korban tzibur. So Eino Din Shalotata Shvushi Ima. So certainly there should be no permissibility of other rabbinic prohibition, which goes against Rabbi Eliezer, who did permit rabbinic prohibitions on Yontif, like carrying chutz l'tchum, etc. So that would be a kasha. So the Gemara will answer, Shvus the mitzvah adif lei. A rabbinic prohibition, but leading to a mitzvah is better than just a shvus to reshus. But
How does he compare? How does he compare Purim to the other Shavuos and Pepe, which is mamish in the Torah?
No, but we're talking about the chiyuv of having a suda.
I understand.
The chiyuv of eating.
So it's rather, but it's still that's a derisa the Shavuos. But even though Purim is for the Megillah, it's not in the.
I understand, but it's one of the three where there's a special union of eating.
Okay.
Because remember, by Pesach and Sukkot,
right, there's no.
Rabbi Eliezer says there is no mitzvah of eating. Yeah. It's only by Shavuos, and he says Hakol Moedim. So it's Shavuos, and then it's Erev Yom Kippur, and then Purim.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, tomorrow 9:00 at night.
Yes.
Because the Tzvika's shir is